to the Occupy Ukiah report for May 31st, 2012. And if you've been keeping track of our shows, we've been gone for 2 weeks, and you've been seeing footage of the Occupy Mendocino Street Fair, which was really a good time. We shot a lot of footage, and so we just thought it was going to be a fun thing to show you as much of that as we could, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you missed any of that, go to our website. We'll be talking about our website later in the show, and all of the shows are archived on there and on YouTube, so you can catch any of the stuff that you've missed in the past. So let's see, for today's show, our headlines. The Occupy Ukiah Facebook page is revived. Yay! And it's functioning. Also, I have a little feature today, Letter to the White House. I really encourage people to contact their representatives, contact the White House, even though you oftentimes won't get a response, or the response you get might be kind of silly. We'll talk about it. So anyway, Letter to the White House. We'll get into that in a minute. Also, we're planning Bank Transfer Day and an open forum. And I'll give you some of the details. We don't have anything firm, but it's in the works. I have a little bit of video today. Julian Assange was in London, and he did an interview with several Occupy leaders, which is kind of an oxymoron. But I've got some interesting footage of that interview. And also I've got some interview on the San Onofre nuclear power plant. It is shut down, by the way, for safety reasons, and we will get into some of those reasons why. And that'll pretty much wrap up our show for the day. So those are our headlines. And let's go right to the Facebook page. I'll pull it up here. Most of you are on Facebook. So when you go to Facebook, you can go to the blue screen here, Greg. There we go. When you go to Facebook, if you punch in Occupy Ukiah, you're going to get two possible Occupy Ukiah pages. One of them is kind of nothing much happening. It looks pretty blank. And the other one has a lot of interesting stuff, and it's up to date, and that's the real one. I'm talking with the administrator for the other page, seeing if we can get that one taken down so that we don't have the confusion. But nonetheless, it is up, it's running, and it is open to the public to post Occupy-related issues. So if you have something that you'd like to post on the Facebook page, feel free. Videos, photos, rants, raves, questions, anything you want. That's what Facebook is all about. And even though I know that a lot of people are a little angry at Facebook right now regarding going public and having the price of their the value of their stock immediately take a nosedive, some people are boycotting them, in fact, as a result. I don't know enough about it yet to have made a decision, but as of now, we're on Facebook. We'll see if we stay on Facebook. So anyway, we've got a lot of interesting stuff. We've got some pictures. Here's a great picture of Vandana Shiva. And it says, seeds controlled by Monsanto, agribusiness trade controlled by Cargill, processing controlled by Pepsi and Philip Morris, retail controlled by Walmart, is a recipe for food dictatorship. We must occupy the food system to create food democracy. I want to do a big feature on our show coming up one of these days on Vandana Shiva, on the situation of seeds and seed saving on the planet. Basically, Monsanto is out to patent seeds and make it so that anybody who wants to plant corn, anybody who wants to plant wheat, soybeans, carrots, will buy them from Monsanto, and then you won't be able to save the seeds because they won't be able to be regerminated. You'll have to buy them from them next year. Now, the tradition all around the planet for tens of thousands of years has been to save seeds, save your best seeds, keep them warm and dry over the winter, plant them in the spring, and trade them with your friends, trade them with your neighbors. They're valuable. They're as valuable as gold. Anyway, we'll get into that later, but that's an awesome picture. Vandana Shiva, she's one of my sheroes. We got some other great stuff. There's our Occupy Ukiah handout is on here with all the information on how to get in touch with us, our General Assembly, our direct action meeting, our TV show, our radio show. There's some great photos that you can look at. So anyway, the Facebook website, the Facebook page is up and running. Feel free to peruse it and join in. That's about all for that today. Next up, we're going to talk about letter to the White House. If you've been watching our previous shows, as you know, I'm really concerned with the nuclear power plant issue, particularly Fukushima. I think Fukushima is a perfect example of what can happen to any nuclear reactor around the world. There's 400 something in the world. There's 104 of them in our country. There's 2 of them in California that are active on our coast, right on the coast, just like Fukushima. Anyway, if you remember at the end of April, there was a letter sent by 72 organizations in Japan to the United Nations, an urgent letter urging the United Nations to hold a nuclear summit to discuss the critical situation of Fukushima Daiichi Unit Number 4. Number 4 has a spent nuclear fuel storage pool up on top of the building, 100 feet in the air up on top of the building, and it has 10 times more deadly radiation than Chernobyl. Now, the problem with Unit Number 4 is the walls got severely damaged in the tsunami and also in the hydrogen blast that happened later. And the building is leaning. It's threatening to fall over if there's another earthquake, if there's a typhoon, if anything big happens, that building could fall over and release an enormous amount of radiation, which would then have very, very serious planetary implications. So, 72 organizations in Japan wrote a letter to the United Nations, said, please gather all the greatest nuclear minds and engineering minds in the world and help us with this unit, because our government's not being honest with us about the radiation levels, and we want to be responsible citizens of the planet, and we need help. So I was curious. I called Dianne Feinstein, and I couldn't reach her. Her number's been changed. I'm going to have to get a little more aggressive. The number was changed or disconnected. I called Barbara Boxer, and I also emailed Barbara Boxer and said, what are you doing to make sure that the United States is helping out with the situation of Fukushima? I also called and emailed the White House. I know darn well Barack Obama doesn't read these letters. I know that really nobody of any importance reads them, but they do have staff whose job it is to read these letters. So I wrote a letter to the White House, and I said, given the severe situation, and I didn't save the letter, I'll try to see if I can paraphrase it. Given the severe situation in Fukushima and the letter that was written to the United Nations, what is the United States doing to remedy the situation in Japan? What are you doing to help? Please let me know. So it took 2 weeks for them to get back. On the White House logo on the top, signed by sincerely Barack Obama. Dear Charles, thank you for writing. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but after just a minute, you'll get the idea. Thank you for writing. Supporting progress and stability around the world is a strategic, economic, and moral imperative of our nation, and I appreciate your perspective. In today's independent world, a financial crisis or disease outbreak on another continent can impact us here at home. Investments, partnerships abroad are critical to addressing the challenges we face that transcend our borders. Basically, to be straightforward about it, it was a lot of bullshit. There was not anything of substance in this letter, and not only that, there was nothing that even referred to the question that I asked. It didn't even refer to Fukushima or nuclear power in the slightest. And so they put up a link, and they talked about foreign policy. Progress in even the poorest countries, can advance not only the security, but also the prosperity of people far beyond their borders, including those in the United States, blah, blah, blah. And they talk about foreign policy and how America will brighten the future of everybody's lives, and on and on. And then the link is basically nothing. So I replied to them, and I said, look, we've got a TV show, and I'm going to share this information on our TV show, and this is also going to be posted on YouTube. So, I'm really looking forward to a response. And I said, I understand the president doesn't read these, but is there anybody who reads these who knows what's going on over in Japan and who possibly might know whether the United States is helping out or not? I'm awaiting your response, and I'm going to share it on the air. So basically, I'm sharing with you that if you write to the White House or call the White House, you won't get any kind of an answer to your question. And I think it's important that we continue to contact these people who are no more than public servants. They're paid for by us. They are elected by us, most of them. I mean, it is some of us, whether or not you voted for the person in office who represents us. Nonetheless, they are voted by us, they are paid by us, they are supposed to represent us, they are supposed to respond to us. If you ask a question, there should be some sort of intelligent response. I think we should demand response. I think that's the least we can expect is some staff member has some knowledge of what's going on in the world to say, yes, the United States is doing this. And I also said, if nothing is being done, then just say nothing's being done. Be honest. But I know, in politics, honesty is not always the policy. So anyway, that's the letter to the White House. I thought that I had saved my response to them, but it didn't get saved. So I'll come back with this whenever I do get a response, if I do, maybe a few weeks. And we'll see if anybody ever says anything with any level of intelligence. Anyway, that's the letter to the White House. Let's move on. Bank Transfer Day. At our last direct action meeting, we tossed around the idea of having another Bank Transfer Day, and how it will look is we'll meet at Alex Thomas Park. We'll have an open forum. We'll have an open mic. We'll have a potluck. You can come share food. You can speak your mind. Everybody will get, maybe 3 minutes to speak. And then we will have a march and demonstration to Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and Chase. And we will encourage people, either people walking in the bank or driving by or people who might be interested, to transfer your money. How many of you out there watching are happy with the situation of our money and the economy today, and the situation and the way the economy was driven down by bank frauds, by the foreclosure frauds? A lot of that was driven by illegal and fraudulent practices of the major banks, particularly Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and Chase. There are a few others, but particularly, and those are here in our town. Well, I was pretty unhappy with Bank of America, and come 2008, when everything crashed and hit the fan, I said, that's it. I'm taking my money out. I was a customer of Bank of America. I was a customer, and so was my dad. And after he passed away, I closed his account, I closed my account, took all my money out, went to Redwood Credit Union, and I told Bank of America, I don't have any problem with you guys here in the bank, but I have a real problem with the company you're working for. And I just can't support these politics anymore. So if you're unhappy with that situation, and if your money is in one of those three banks here in town, you know what you can do? Take your money out. Go in and tell them you don't support their politics. You don't support their business practices. You don't support Bank of America paying zero taxes for the past several years, and I haven't looked that far back, but at least the past 2, 0 taxes. All of us pay our taxes. They take it right out of our paychecks, whether we like it or not. Bank of America made record profits. They paid their CEOs and all their top people millions of dollars in benefit pay and all that. 0 taxes. If that makes you unhappy, if that pisses you off, take your money out and put it in one of our local credit unions. Ask the credit union what they do with your money. And I'm very happy with the one that I'm in. They're very good people, and they actually sent me a letter a couple years ago and lowered the APR on my credit card. I've never received a letter like that in my life. They lowered it from 12 to 9. And they're pretty good people over there, and they're not cutthroat. So anyway, that's something you can do. If you want to feel powerful, take your money out. And we'll have more detailed information on Bank Transfer Day coming up probably in the next show. We can give you names, dates, places, and what you can do. So that's all for that at this point, and we're going to move on. We're moving right along here. We've got an interview with Julian Assange in London, and he had several so-called leaders from the Occupy groups in New York and London, and he had them sort of sitting in a roundtable session and basically asked them some questions. So we can go to the blue screen now, and let's pull up our video, and this will go right from this lady straight to Julian Assange, and I think we're going to look at about 9 minutes of video here. So here we go.
David, Occupy, with that word, came to world prominence as a result of Occupy New York, but it spread over the United States as well. Can you describe a bit this spread of Occupy over the continental United States?
It was remarkably quick. I was flabbergasted. I was astounded. It's, you know, you dream of these things happening, but you never really think they're actually going to happen. I would say in 3 weeks we had something like 800 occupations. And you know, granted, some of those occupations were just like one guy with a sign, but a lot of them weren't. A lot of them were large camps of people in places like, you know, Missoula, Occupy, Saskatchewan, in Canada. I mean, it's a remarkable outpouring, and it happened very, very quickly.
I want to get on to space. Mm-hmm. So why is it important to occupy a space at all? Why not just stay at home? You've got your Rolodex, you've got your friends, you've got your social networking. Why not just coordinate from behind the scenes? Isn't it a bit of a waste of time to pitch up a tent and you can't do things efficiently?
Well, it goes back to the question about why online movements move offline at all. I think there is a natural human need to communicate face-to-face. And actually, it is much more profound. I think working online, it's about coordinating autonomous individuals to do things. And you have some feeling that you're part of a community of people that feels the same thing or is concerned about the same thing. But it's nothing like being in a space that say, stop, everyone is there and willing to, and wanting to talk to each other. Because it's actually recreating the kind of society which people wish existed all the time.
I think it's also an experiment to see how far you can push your engagement with, in the civic space. Meaning, when civic space is the curb between the Chuck E. Cheese and the Walmart, which it is in the United States in a lot of cases, in a lot of even small towns, there is a need to create a publicness that is not private, that is not related to one's job even, that is the we that comes together, that deals with Carlisle buying our water or whatever it might be.
David, does the space have to be contested? I mean, everyone could go out into the redwoods of California or something. In fact, the G8 has been moved off to Camp David, it seems,
indeed,
in order to achieve just that effect.
Well, I think yes. I mean, I think there's been for the last 30 years, there's been the systematic assault on the notion of community and the idea of the imagination, or political imagination. And this is a way of reclaiming both at the same time. So I think that that idea of taking something back is critically important.
Is it a demonstration of sovereignty in literal terms of an area of land? We physically control through our political decision-making this space. You do not physically control.
Absolutely, and that's what's critical about it. I mean, it's a dual power strategy. I mean, we are talking about force. We're not talking about legalities. They're not talking about legalities, and neither are we. Either might deploy one as a weapon. But what we're saying is this is our space. We're the public. This is a public space. We're going to take it. And that simple act of defiance is enormously creative. I mean, everything follows from that, and everything else we've done has been from the fact that we start out without accepting the terms of the existing order and with the will to imagine a new one.
In the domination of that physical space, in creating your own little mini-state at Occupy, which is, I think, the correct term, when you physically control an area of land, when you have the monopoly on coercive force. You started to erect certain structures about how to deal with each other and how to coordinate with each other, and certain methodologies for dealing with the police, for dealing with opportunists within the Occupy movement, for dealing with crazy people, for dealing with the garbage. Those methodologies that you came up with for political decision-making and practically dealing with things, do you see them as a blueprint for dealing with wider society, or are they methodologies that are simply for, or mostly for, dealing with the particular problem at hand, which is how to occupy a square?
I don't think we ever did have the monopoly of force within Occupy. And it would have been a lot easier had we, had we done that. And actually negotiating what you do in this situation where sort of any disruption that may happen. Actually, you don't have the power of coercion. You have the power. You have the power of persuasion. You have the power of showing what the majority of people in that space think. But ultimately, no, you don't have coercion, and that also is an education.
You've got a disruptive person in there, or they're a mad person. They're ruining it for everyone. What do you do with them? What do you do with them in Occupy? How do you get rid of them? Do you call the cops? What do you do?
We don't do that, John.
No, actually, we've been using a combination of things. De-escalation, mediation, and nonviolent communication have been the modes of dealing with conflicts within the park.
So David, if push comes to shove at the end, I stay there. Your fucking rules don't apply to me. I want to drum when I want to drum. I want to talk when I want to talk. I want to be naked when I want to be naked. Don't you need your big guys to turn up at some stage and go, look, buddy, come on. You're ruining it for everyone. Piss off.
There are many ways to put pressure on people.
So, with the drummers, for instance, I mean, we had an assembly where we talked about the drumming situation. We negotiated it within the realm of the assembly.
Alexa?
There certainly are conflicts and tensions that are natural to human beings in groups within Occupy. It's not like the space that Occupy creates suddenly is like a utopia, because it isn't.
Aaron, at the end, don't you need a mechanism, a process to deploy coercive force?
It's practically, it's a question that needs answering, of course, but
God, you guys are so uncomfortable with this.
I had the privilege of going to a decent union. This is a general kind of existential question.
Well,
about
you might put them in psychotherapy for 10 years.
I don't incline to that person.
I put them in psychotherapy for 10 years, but in the meantime, you've got someone in your goddamn camp causing a problem.
There have been people who've been banned from meetings and things like that. That's happened. In a way, we're trying to delicately move around some issues that perhaps we don't want to talk about so much, which is intentional subversion. There were attempts to sort of dump people on us. There were, at some point the police were taking recently released prisoners and taking them in buses to the park and saying, hey, there's free food here. So it isn't just that these sociopathy just naturally appears if you have people in a camp. There was a very directed attempt to try to subvert us and give us the choice between, you know, either being overwhelmed or kind of turning into a social welfare model where we take care of these people, which is another thing that started happening.
How did Occupy London prevent pathological social grifters who were very glib in their words, good at telling one thing to one person, another thing to another person, spreading rumours, sowing dissent from rising up to the top? Or has it?
Well,
Right. If it has a top, it's very easy to do. But if it's a horizontal movement, it's really quite hard. I mean, there's only so much damage a sociopath can do. I mean, it's like what I always say about anarchism when people say, well, what about, you know, people who are just don't care about anyone else and are selfish jerks? And I'll say, well, yes, but at least they won't end up in charge of armies. Which they do here, you know. There's really only so much damage like such a person can do if they don't have a structure where they can start dominating and rising to the top. One thing I actually agree with William F. Buckley. He once said that I'd rather be governed by the first 300 names in the phone book than the people currently running Congress. I agree. They'd probably do a better job.
I mean, in the end, however we govern ourselves, we have to be able to be competitive with those who would seek to govern us another way.
Absolutely.
This is why international movement is so important, and that's what we're seeing. I mean, there's a feeling out there that the enemy has become increasingly globalized, and the only way it can be challenged is by global movement. So in that sense, whether states are competitive with one another is becoming increasingly relevant.
Aaron?
So we've got the biggest transformation in the global political economy in terms of stuff going on Southeast Asia. With all this debt, I mean, it's only going to end one way. Like, clearly the West is over. Like, it's apparent to everybody but public policymakers in the West. it's just abundantly evident. I don't think it's ridiculous.
Clear they don't really know, too.
Well, I know. When you start talking about 1989 moments and money not coming out of cash points, people laugh at you. Go, like, I don't know. I mean, it's pretty obvious that the party's over.
It only makes sense that the 1% is going to try to grab all the cookies if there's less cookies to grab. But it seems very unlikely, if you look at it historically, that they're going to end up with them.
All right. That was Julian Assange, and he had several leaders from Occupy New York and Occupy London with him. And what I found interesting about that is they weren't just talking about typical Occupy issues, whereas, you know, like, you know, the 99%, the 1%, you know, the economic unfairness of things, healthcare, whatever. All those are valid, but he was digging into talking about how do you deal with internally difficult people? How do you internally deal with conflicts? And that is really at the core of any successful organization. That's at the core of any successful movement. That's at the core of, really, I believe, any successful person. And that is, how do you deal with your conflicts? How do you deal with difficult people? And so one of the ways that we make our decisions, or the way that we make our decision presently in Occupy Ukiah, and most all of the Occupy groups around the country is by consensus. For those of you not familiar with consensus, that means that whoever's in the group is going to all agree. If you have a facilitator in the group, that person is only going to help the group discuss and move along efficiently, but that facilitator has no power. Basically, everybody is going to try to come up with the best solution as a group, and everybody will agree. If you find one person standing aside, they'll usually have concerns like, well, I don't think that we should bake a pie because the oven's broken or something, you know, like that. And so usually a person will, if they have good intentions, they will disagree with a decision based on sound reasoning, and they will then offer maybe a positive solution, what we would call a friendly amendment. So a lot of times consensus takes a lot of work. It takes a real commitment. It's actually a spiritual space that you enter. And you are basically saying, okay, as a group, we're committed to working through this problem, and we're committed to working through our own personal problems. And we're not going to give up, and we're not going to revert to the old ways of hauling somebody out back and beating them up, like happens in the bar. You know, if they don't like how you're acting, you call the bouncer, and out you go. Or call the police. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is that we're trying to do everything a little bit different. We're trying to improve everything. The way that we deal with each other monetarily, the way that we deal with each other socially, the way that we deal with each other in lots of ways has to change in this world if anything is going to improve. So that's kind of at the core of what that last part of the video was talking about. I thought it was pretty interesting. Anyway, let's move on. We will go on to our last video. It's a quick one. And now this one is a clip from Channel 2 News, I believe it was, in Los Angeles. And that one is the wrong one there. Is going to talk about the San Onofre nuclear plant and some of the difficulties they've had there. And it's about 5 minutes long, and then we'll be closing up after that. So this is a pretty good video. Let's go to the blue screen. Here we go.
Attention lucky shoppers.
Come on down. You're the next contestant on The Price is Right. Play for a chance to win $1 million and thousands of prizes. You need to buy milk anyway. Become a millionaire while you shop. The Price is Right game is here for a short time, only at Lucky's.
Butler, CBS 2 News.
Amazing story. Thank you, Stacey. It's a CBS 2 exclusive investigation. Previously classified documents and other evidence pointing to a major hidden danger in the San Onofre nuclear power plant. CBS 2's Randy Page has a story affecting everyone across the Southland.
Grace Fantillo is one of nearly 8.5 million people who live within 50 miles of the San Onofre nuclear generating station. In fact, her home on Avenida San Pablo in San Clemente is less than 5 miles from the twin reactor domes. Her feeling about the plant's safety?
It's an accident waiting to happen.
Fantillo isn't the only one who's worried about the plant. We've consulted with nuclear experts who tell us they're concerned about fire and the lessons learned 37 years ago at the Browns Ferry nuclear power plant in Athens, Alabama.
March 22nd, 1975.
This PBS documentary detailed the event when a worker using a candle to search for air leaks started a fire. It melted the main and backup cables needed to cool the reactor. In 1981, the NRC responded with fire regulations that require wiring for the main and backup systems to be physically separated at all nuclear power plants to prevent one fire from taking out both systems. Now, more than 3 decades later, San Onofre continues to be in violation of those decades-old fire safety standards.
Browns Ferry was an amazing wake-up call.
Dan Hirsch teaches nuclear policy at the University of California, Santa Cruz.
You have to prevent fires in reactors or you can have a meltdown. And you have to create significant separation between your backup and your primary cabling. The reactor in back of us still hasn't done that.
The NRC allows San Onofre to compensate for its failure to keep enough separation between the main and backup cables by hiring workers to conduct hourly fire inspections in areas where the cables are too close together. But some of those fire watches were never done. We've obtained this previously classified report, which shows one worker deliberately failed to conduct required fire protection surveillances and falsified fire watch logs. And the report says it went on for 5 years between the dates of April 2001 and December 2006. Then there's the 2009 case of another Firewatch employee who was observed smoking what appeared to be marijuana within the licensee's protected area. In both cases, the Firewatch employees were fired, but the NRC did not fine or discipline Edison for its part in failing to recognize 5 years of non-existent inspections. Through fire watches and other measures, San Onofre counts on its employees to maintain fire protection at the plant. So you might wonder if the utility also listens to its employees' safety concerns. Well, consider this. San Onofre leads the nation in the number of safety complaints filed by its own employees to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Do you worry about the people who live near the plant?
Of course.
One of those safety complaints was filed by this electrical engineer who spent the last 11 of his 30 years in the nuclear industry at San Onofre. We have agreed not to reveal his identity. Is this a dangerous plant?
At this point, it is a dangerous plant.
He says he told his managers back in 1999 about another fire risk, circuit breakers that could allow critical wiring connected to emergency pumps to overheat and catch fire. He says his supervisors ignored his concerns for years, so he went to the NRC. You're talking about a very real risk of fire.
That is true, no question about that.
Last year, the NRC agreed the circuit breakers did not provide adequate protection, and Edison agreed to change them by the end of the year. Now, more than a decade after he first identified the problem, he's still waiting for confirmation that the work has been done. If you put it all together for me, the safety culture at the plant, the known problems that have surfaced, in your professional view, is this a dangerous plant?
It is.
In its inspection reports, the NRC says San Onofre's violation of the 1981 fire protection standards is more than minor, but carries a very low risk significance because of the things plant workers are doing called operator manual actions and the low probability of fire damage. But other nuclear experts we consulted shared Dan Hirsch's assessment.
It's a form of Russian roulette. It's a form of tossing dice.
Experts on both sides agree a nuclear power plant can never be 100% safe. The real question, is San Onofre safe enough? From the NRC's vantage point, the answer is yes. But the view from Grace Vantillo's backyard prompts a different conclusion.
It will never be safe enough.
In San Onofre, Randy Page, CBS 2 News.
We repeatedly asked Southern California Edison to respond on camera to the issues raised in our story, but the utility declined. Tonight, SoCal Edison emailed a statement to all media saying it's revamping its fire protection plan and expects to meet updated regulations by the year 2013. For continuing coverage of the San Onofre plant, don't forget.
Okay. So the video cuts off right there. Anyway, that's just a good example of what goes on today in industry, just in industry. I'm sure all of you who have worked any kind of a job at all, you cut corners, you save money, you piece things together with duct tape or wire or whatever, you buy a cheaper part. There is the same tendency in the nuclear industry, and if you at all do any research, you'll find that all the plants are dealing with violations constantly. They are always cutting corners. There's always going to be people who are on the job who are supposed to be doing a fire inspection who are going to lie about it. They're going to go behind the building and smoke pot. That's human nature. Now, if you're talking about, the cops or the firemen or the guy painting your house, it could be a problem, but it's not going to kill millions and millions of people. It's not going to sicken millions of people. It's not going to poison hundreds of square miles, thousands of square miles of land for maybe 500,000 years. That's what these power plants can do. So human nature alone is the most damaging feature of industry today and of particularly nuclear power. And the people at Fukushima are a perfect example. They ran a very tight ship. They were very diligent. They had up their seawalls. They were ready for tsunamis. They were ready for earthquakes. And lo and behold, Mother Nature was stronger than their plans, and they were helpless as babies. And that is just the nature of things. So we really need to move forward and work on getting these plants shut down and getting the nuclear fuel away the heck from our coastlines and our waterways for a start. There's one nuclear reactor that's really safe, and it's the biggest one in our solar system, and that's our sun. That is one big nuclear reactor, and we are a safe distance from it. We can use that energy to light our homes and to run our TV shows and to power pretty much everything we need. But we have to have the political and social will to invest our money in giant solarization projects. That's all that it takes. We just have to have the political will. We have to take the power out of the hands of the people who are running it right now, who are hooked onto oil, who are hooked onto coal, who are hooked onto whatever, nuclear power, and say, damn it, we want solar. It's clean, it's safe, let's do it now. So do something about it. Contact your reps, get involved, join the Occupy movement, get trained to be a solar installer, sell solar installation products, get involved, make baby steps so that we can all improve our world. All right, that's all we're trying to do here. So anyway, if you want to see more of that video or any videos like it, that was on Nuclear Free California website, and there's the URL up on the screen. nuclearfreecal.org is a really great website, and you can see all kinds of good videos on there and get lots of information. They have updates on Fukushima. I know it's not a very light and sunny topic. I know it can be incredibly depressing. I recommend that you get your spiritual house in order. You really need to make peace with whatever you see as spirit, God, the soul, yourself, because this stuff is very serious, and we are really playing with the worst kind of fire possible. So let's do something positive about it and make ourselves feel better. And we're going to end the show today by just talking about the last things that we're involved in Occupy Ukiah. We always have our TV show, and you can watch this on random times. Jason here at the station runs it at some pretty odd hours, so you can catch it whenever, but also it's on regularly Sundays at 9 a.m. and 8 p.m. in the evening. And also you can catch it on our website, occupyukiah.info. All of the shows are archived on there. Sometimes it takes us a week or two to get them posted, but eventually they're up. And so you go to our website and you can get all the information on our radio show, which is on KMEC 105.1 KMEC right here in Ukiah. And that's Wednesdays, 5 to 6 p.m. with your host, Tom Ray. And also now he's getting Bart. I don't remember Bart's last name at the moment. And also Peter Good is joining in on that show. And it's a really interesting show, Wednesdays at 5. Come to our General Assembly Saturdays, 10 o'clock, Alex Thomas Plaza. We are occupying the plaza for 2 hours every Saturday, unless there's some other event, which has happened the past few weeks. But you'll see our canopy right there in the middle of the park. You are welcome to come and join in, observe consensus in action, take part in consensus in action. We'll even give you a few minutes to speak your piece if you have anything you want to say, any questions you have. Our direct action meetings are Sundays at 11 at the MEC, the Mendocino Environmental Center. And you can find all that information on our website. So, to finish up our show, I'm going to go to a Howard Zinn quote. And it's been my favorite Howard Zinn quote, and it's really a simple one. And we can go to the blue screen for this one. We don't have to engage in grand heroic actions to participate in the process of change. Small acts, when multiplied by millions of people, can transform the world. And I really believe that, because I get pretty upset at times, just like all of us do, that things aren't moving fast enough. Things aren't working. Everything's falling apart. You know, let's do something about it. Find what you do well, and make small steps to improve it. That's the best we can do. So for now, that's about all for today, May 31st, 2012. and we'll see you around town.